Welcome. Welcome to Convocation. Thank you for coming. Okay, how is everybody today? Good? All right. Okay, we are so excited. We have a great program for you today, but just a few announcements for you. Those of you who are in the class, don't forget to attend your 3 additional cultural events. And what's that light, JD? Okay, so don't forget 3 additional cultural events, a music, an art, and a theater. So this next week is fall break. We won't be having Convocation, but yeah, right? Okay, you're a little excited about that. But it would be a great time to attend your 3 additional events. So take some time out in your schedule and go do that. We have a lot going on campus. Actually, tonight at 7:30 here in the concert hall is the Monastery After Hours Choir Concert. That's why we have all these chairs up here. Also, the Granary Arts Center, right down on Main Street, is holding a free opening reception for the new art exhibits tomorrow, Friday the 13th, from 6 to 8 p.m. So also the orchestra pop concert is tomorrow at 7:30 as well. And then, so much going on. The Wind Symphony concert will be October 17th at 7:30 as well. There are also other events on Canvas if you're in the class, and also on Snow College on the calendar on the website. Okay, we are going to start today with a musical number by one of our students, Daniel Perez, and he will be performing an original composition. So please give a warm round of applause to Daniel Perez. Daniel, that was amazing. Can you believe that was an original composition? Give it up one more time for Daniel Perez. Great job. Today I'm so honored to welcome back to Snow College for what, the fourth time, Dave? Is it? Oh, lucky for us, we're welcoming back David Lee. David was Utah's first Poet Laureate, and this presentation is being sponsored in part by Utah Humanities, their book festival, so we'd like to thank them. David Lee is the author of over a dozen collections, most recently Bluebonnets, Firewheels, and Brown-Eyed Susans, or Poems New and Used from the Bandera Rag and Bone Shop. His collection, From News from Down to the Café, was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize, and in 2001, he was a finalist for the position of the United States Poet Laureate. And directly following his presentation, David will be in the back signing books if any of you would like to come up and talk to him and buy a book. So please welcome back to Snow College for the umpteenth time, lucky us, David Lee.
Thank you. Thank you. It was wonderful. What an absolute pleasure. And that there's an irony in this. I think it really is. I think it's 6, but I don't know much about math. But I think 6 different times I've had a new book come out, and the first college reading has been at Snow College. So I consider you to be my lucky charm, and I'm hoping the book does well, and I'm hoping more of the reading goes okay, but we'll just see about it. It's an incredible pleasure, and I get to see former students here. That just makes my heart ache. But special thanks to Anita for letting me come into her class today, which was a great warm-up and a great time. And Celia, thank you for putting up with me. She once said, "I hope you're not insulted by what I'm offering you." And I wrote her back and said, because I had a little typo in there, and it came out, "I am not enlusted by what you've offered." And I thought, after I read it, I sort of liked what I said, but gee, if I'm not enlusted, I missed out. So there we are. So, all right. I've spoken. I've got my voice going. I'm gonna start off with a poem about external beauty. The drive over here yesterday from Moab. I went from Boulder, Utah, where I'd been working, to Moab, and then back here, and could not have picked a more beautiful time. The color was just spectacular. What an amazingly beautiful world we live in, and I got to see that. And so I've picked a different season. I've picked a spring season that was likewise really important to me that way a year or so back. And I want to read you that poem. And that will get you used to my voice. And I know that some of you will have a bit of a tough time getting accustomed to someone who speaks with an absolutely perfect, non-inflected accent. So, but endeavor to persevere, as Mr. Faulkner said, and it'll work itself out. But I'll read this one, and then I want to read something from the new book, just to try it out on you and see how it goes. This one, by the way, has some characters in it that will be in a poem I'm going to read from the new book. That's one of the things we writers do. We invent characters, and then they become part of our internal workings, our family, and we learn to use them and listen to them. This is Globe Mallow, and it's a redux. It was set in House Rock Valley, down below Jacobs Lake, Arizona, when you've crossed the border into the foreign country. "Turn out right there," Jan said. And I said, "Okay," and pulled off the highway, and Jan got out with her camera, started taking pictures. Globe mallow spread thigh high across the red desert, thick as Moses' sea, tangled with Pharaoh's chariots. Then another car pulled off, and another, then one more, all of us, like children in a field of strawberries, stretching out to the edge of a horizon, lapping over into other worlds. And then the 84 Ford, doors flung open, driver bolting for a ditch, and a long bleeding of the lizard. Passenger sauntering toward us, eyes agape, neck turning. What y'all looking for? Is it some dead bodies out here? Jan gestured toward the wildflowers, turned back to pleasure. He turned to me. What y'all taking them pictures of? I said, globe mallow. We've never seen such a profusion. Seen such of a what? The flowers, I said. What'd you say they was? Globe mallow. Like marshmallows, he said. And I said, exactly. They're in bloom like we've never seen before. That where marshmallows come from? And I too, William Stafford, thought hard for us all, my only swerving, and said, yep, they're in full bloom, and this fall they'll have fruit spread across this field like high-kept Brock, Texas cotton on a rain year. Is it worth any much? He said. And I said, yeah. So I've heard. A 4-ounce bag in a grocery store goes for $2, I've been told. And a tow sack full might hold, what, 100 pounds? Now, at 4 $2 sacks to the pound. And he said, Jesus Christ, can you pick it? And I said, on the outside of the fence. Inside is Indian land. Only the Navajo can harvest there. That's how they get all those new pickups. This side of the fence is BLM and belongs to the American public. He said, you wouldn't be kidding me, any? I said, no, sir. I am a retired professor of English, and I have neither patience nor respect for hyperbolic felicity, that being beneath my dignity. He said, you swear to God? I said, yes. I will swear to whatever God it is you believe in. That's exactly what I said. Jan was staring at me with her look. I shrugged in the sunlight, hoping I was bursting into blossom. Looks like it's going to be one hell of a crop this year. But he had already turned, striding toward his car with purpose and enthusiasm. Leroy, he yelled, where are you at? Get back to the car. I got me something to tell you. Hurry up, damn it. Okay, I'm going to read a poem in this book. I'm known as a narrative poet, tell stories. I'm also known as a voice poet. I try to incorporate voices inside. This poem is a 5-act play. Now, it's not going to last 2 hours, an hour and 45 minutes maybe, but not 2. But I'll sort of mark the acts as we go through, and I try to follow the idea of the exposition and complication and crisis and falling action and denouement. But you don't need to know any of that. I just told you that show off. The true story Anytime. Know this. You're not here to learn anything, but learn this anyway. Anytime you ever hear a Texan say, this is a true story, pay attention because he's getting ready to tell you a lie. So there it is. The true story of Susan Birchfield, Deputies Thibodeau, and the Texas rat snake, Act 1. Susan Birchfield said the move actually went better than she expected, even though it took 432 trips between the old house and the new one on Silk Stocking, 9 calls to the bank, 4 to the preacher, 1 to the JP, 3 to the Josies to re-borrow their big truck and trailer, and 2 to the marriage counselor. Dennis said before he would move again, he would burn the house down and start over, with or without insurance. Monday morning, him back at work, her time to walk through and just look it over by herself with a cup of coffee. She felt good about everything, almost to the point of forgiveness. Said she only meant to look through the window, not at it, but right on top of the drapes, sprawled like a 3-toned housebroken cat, the 6-foot snake, proud to be an adopted member of the Birchfield family. She remembered saying out loud, I could live without that. Said she did not spill 1 drop of her coffee on the carpet or table, set it down, turned and picked up the phone, called the sheriff's office. Sheila, she said, I need some help here at my new place. Sheila said, is it a disturbance, ma'am? Susan said, yes, I believe so. Ma'am, is it an intruder? Sheila said. Susan said, oh yes, I believe so. Are you in danger, ma'am? Sheila said. Susan said, I might be, but not in an immediate manner. Sheila said, ma'am, I'll send Deputy Sheriff Thibodeau as soon as I can find him. Susan said, start at the coffee counter at Adolph's. Ask Laurie if he's there. Sheila said, yes, ma'am. I'll do just that. Yes'm, Deputy Sheriff Thibodeau said when Susan Birchfield opened the door after he rang the bell. I understand you have a disturbance on your premise. She said, yes, I do. He said, ma'am, I understand you have an intruder here at your house. She said, yes, I do. He said, I'll be here to be of assistance. What can I do to help me? She said, you come right this way. Took him into the living room, pointed at the window. He looked through it hard to find out where it was hiding, whatever it was, until she put her hand in front and pointed his face up. Said it took about 9 seconds of looking to see what he was seeing. Said, Holy Mary, Mother of God, blessed be the fruit of the loins on baby Jesus. Pulled out his pistol, hollered, you stay right there. Don't you move. She yelled, no, no. Put that gun up. Don't you shoot that in my house. Said his eyes could have been milked if you'd grabbed and pulled on them. He was scared. It's a snake up there. She said, yes, it is. Can you get him down? He said, no, ma'am. I shoot him off there for you, me. I ain't don't touch no snake, it'd be dangerous. Stood right there in that room like Lot's wife. Looked at that snake sleeping on top of the drapes for a long time, pointing his pistol at it. She telling him 4 times, don't you shoot that gun in here. Do you hear me? He said finally, you got any telephone? She said, yes, of course. He said, I need to use it. Maybe I call my cousin. He been to snick school. He know what to do. She dialed the phone while he dialed the number while he held the phone with one hand, pointed the pistol at the snake with the other. Said, Leroy, you get in your truck, drive yourself right down here to New Birchfield Place on Silk Stocking, where you see my patrol car parked. Bring you snake catcher. We got us a problem, Houston. Mrs. Houston, Assistant Deputy Constable Leroy Thibodeau, certified in snake removal at your service. How can I help you? Hi, y'all, Cousin Jodine. Howdy doody, Leroy, said Deputy Thibodeau. My name is Mrs. Birchfield, said Susan. Leroy, get in here and looky. We got us a problem, Deputy Thibodeau said. You got your snake stick? Right here, said Leroy. Walked in past Mrs. Birchfield without being invited into her living room. Oh, Jesus, Thibodeau, Leroy said when he saw it. That's a damn water moccasin. I think, yes. You think so? Said Deputy Thibodeau. Maybe a diamondback, I think. Maybe. Ain't got no rattlers, I see. Could be a giant coppermouth. I don't know. It's one damn big snake. I can see. Yes, maybe one of them amacambas crawled up through the sewer pipe, bite wormings on the butt, sit and stare up through the toilet, said Leroy. Where they come from, said Deputy Thibodeau. I think Brazil, down south somewhere, they say, said Leroy. That's a long way to come to bite a woman on her butt, said Deputy Thibodeau. That's why they crawl through the pipes, come out and eat babies at night, crawl back in. How come you got your gun out pointed at me, coon ass, said Leroy. I shoot that son of a big snake. He come after me, said Deputy Thibodeau. Don't you shoot that gun in my house, said Susan. Only if he offered to come bite on me, and he said, Deputy Thibodeau, not in this house, she said. What you gonna do, Mr. Stickman, now? Said Deputy Thibodeau. We got catch this snake, put him in a bucket with a lid on, said Leroy. You got a bucket with a lid? Said Deputy Thibodeau. No. You? Said Leroy. Hell no. What do I need a bucket with a lid on it for? How come you call me coon-ass, you peckerhead? Said Deputy Thibodeau. You got a bucket with a lid on it, Mrs. Houston? Said Leroy. My name is Mrs. Birchfield, and there's a soap bucket with a lid in the laundry room, said Susan. Would you ask Mrs. Houston then if we could borrow that bucket for a little while, catch this snake, said Leroy. I'll go get it, said Susan. You shouldn't call me peckerhead, talk that way in front of the women who work here, said Leroy. What we do now, said Deputy Thibodeau. You take this snake stick, put the catcher on that big snake head, pull him down, put him right in the bucket I put on the lid then, said Leroy. You a snake man? You been to school. You put the snake catcher on his head. I hold the bucket, Deputy Thibodeau said. Ain't what I trained to do. I trained to put the lid on the bucket. After you put him snake in the bucket, yes, said Leroy. I ain't trained to catch no snake, said Deputy Thibodeau. Now, that ain't part of my job, no. Go ahead, said Leroy. Ain't no problem, big one. Easy to see what you're doing. Put snake catcher right up there, catch him behind the head, pull him down, and put him in the bucket. Hell no, said Deputy Thibodeau. I ain't touched no snake. Here, said Susan, give it to me. Lifted the snake stick up to the curtain, slipped the loop over the snake's head, pulled it down off the drapes on the floor where it sprawled like an overfed pig. Oh, damn. Looky that bump in his belly. He done ate something, maybe somebody's baby, said Deputy Thibodeau. No, ain't that big, said Leroy. I think maybe somebody's little dog, maybe cat, yes. It's a mouse, said Susan. It's not big enough to be a dog. Well, I think you exactly right, Mrs. Ma'am, said Leroy. You better get him in a bucket before he wake up hungry again. Hold you up and put him in. Got him head in, said Leroy. Jodine, would you put that damn gun down? Now put him tail in the bucket and I'll put the lid on. Hell no, said Deputy Thibodeau. I told you once and twice, I ain't touched no snake. Not gonna hurt you, said Leroy. She got his head down, Mrs. Birchhead. Mrs. Birchfield, said Susan. Hell with head, said Deputy Thibodeau. I shoot him right here in the bucket. Don't you shoot that snake in my bucket in my house, said Susan. Now you put that gun up. Here, Deputy Thibodeau. She said, hold the snake stick. Gave it to Deputy Thibodeau in the hand without a pistol. Picked up the snake's body, wound it like a rope coil into the bucket. Put the lid on, Leroy, Deputy Thibodeau said. Put it on now. I can't, Leroy said. Snake sticky's in the way. You got to get it off. Get it off, said Deputy Thibodeau. Yeah, you grab a snake's head and take it off of you. Here, said Susan, hold still. I'll do it. You be careful now, Mrs. Houston, Leroy said. Don't you let him be biting on you any. I won't, said Susan. Would you please get out of the way, Deputy Thibodeau? I got the lid already, said Leroy. When you get him off, we'll be all done and finished pretty soon. All right, now, don't let him get away, said Deputy Thibodeau. Here you bucket, ma'am, said Deputy Thibodeau. We done torn that snake loose like you said we do. Did you shoot that snake, Deputy Thibodeau? Susan said. Oh, no, ma'am, I couldn't hit him with no pistol. He done gone off somewhere home out in the wood by himself. I won't apologize for my cousin Leroy. He sometime got a fiffy mouth on him. He don't mean nothing by it. He tell me, he tell you. Tell Mrs. Houston herself. You better wash this bucket out real good for Mrs. Birchwood before you used it. It's got a whole lot of snake hair in it. Oh, yes, I will do that, said Susan. Indeed. Yes, ma'am, said Deputy Thibodeau. I suspicion you will do that about exactly. And then she said, so she could get it exactly right, in his own words, as he might have said it, without ado au revoir. He got in his patrol car to went and left the premise to look for him a hot cup of coffee and somebody to tell all about his day, about the bigger much one He toined a loose and let him get away. And then I want to change the tone and pace to a poem about a person I dearly loved. I guess I dearly loved all of them, but I dearly loved this woman. Her name was Buena Vista Ragsdale. Now, this is a Texas book. And for those of you who have never been there, one of the credos of Texas is we absolutely have the divinely ordained right to mispronounce any word in any lexicon. So in Texas, it's not Buena Vista, it's Buena Vista. Buena Vista Ragsdale. And the title of the poem is Tough. And she was the toughest woman I ever knew in my life. This is about as close to the bone as I can get. It has an epigraph, and it's possibly my favorite line in the entire Hebrew Old Testament. It's from Job 29:19. The dew lay all night heavy upon my branch. Tough. Buena Vista Ragsdale. The morning the mailman found her after 18 hours on that caliche ground, hard as a mule trail. The dregs of dawn light streamed up like a coxcomb above the rickety farmhouse ridgepole and wallowed with the blue-tick heeler, the rain-drip ground edge under the Texas porch. Far sky, still dark blue as a shotgun barrel. Above where she lay in the full-body embrace of death, wash hung, stretched out and starched on the clothesline like a flock of angels nesting in rows under a fading daylight moon. The cheatgrass whitewashed with hard rime. She fell and waited for him to find her through the afternoon and cold night with a broken hip, her dyspeptic husband inside with the TV, wondering where supper might be until he found buttermilk and cornbread in the coal box with a quarter of an onion. That would have to tide him over until she finished whatever she was doing and made him something for breakfast. Never even noticed she didn't come to bed. When the mailman knocked him up from his Captain Kangaroo reverie to wallow out of his chair and come answer the door, he said, "Ralph, you need to get on the phone. Call an ambulance to come out here." He said, "What for? I ain't sick yet." The mailman said, "It's not about you. It's your wife, Miss Buena, laying out there on the ground, half froze to death and hurt bad, it looks like." And he said, "Well, I wondered how come she hadn't made no coffee." She wouldn't even take an aspirin with a glass of whiskey for the pain, so she could stay awake and keep her mind alert enough to hear what that damn Dr. Tubbs and those nurses might be saying about her behind her back, who didn't know one thing about any of it anyway. And after the mailman offered his opinion on how tough she was, she said, "Like a ocotillo limb." To which Dr. Tubbs said, "What?" She said, "A devil's walking stick. Just find a bed and put me in it. I need to get some rest." Her husband hitched a ride in with the mailman the next day and sat in the corner of her room saying nothing, like a waterlogged raft waiting for a huge shove to get underway, but accepting a dinner tray when they brought it, then hitched a ride back to the farm every evening with whoever he conned out of a lift the 7 miles. So introverted and evanescent, The nurses and Dr. Tubbs on rounds never even noticed his presence. He made such a science of mute insociability, except to ask that the channel be changed on rare occasions of documentary or political commentary beyond his cognition. Having, as Dr. Tubbs said, the mental capacity and vocabulary of a second grader plus the word fire truck, she lay dying through the winter with her non-healing, shattered pelvis and femur, uncomplaining and acceptant of fate, only asking the nurses one request: that the call switch be hung on the toilet paper holder, saying, "By God, they can find me being dead in bed or on the ground, but they are not going to discover me stretched out on top of the bedpan." When her husband said, "What was that about?" she said, "Oh, just shut up. Your mind is as black as a table of face-down dominoes on top of a midnight velvet cloth. Go on home. You ain't doing anybody any good, so you might as well do it there as here." Dr. Tubbs said she was a lily of the field, her toiling and spinning days done. Let her have anything she wants. Anybody who put up with that man and that hard a life out there alone for 50 years is a candidate for sainthood. Not to speak of the fact that she could do any job needed done on a ranch or farm, from building fence to pulling calves to digging a new outhouse pit and moving the shack on, to fixing grates, swathing and pitching hay, to picking up eggs. Mailman said he had seen them going out to work, she carrying tools in a shoulder satchel, him following behind like something habitual, carrying an empty 5-gallon bucket he had turned down and sit on while she worked, all the time fulfilling his self-designated role, supervising and criticizing. Once, when he brought the mail out, he saw her pushing a lawnmower over the front yard weeds, her life object telling her where she had to go back for a missed spot. She said, "Get out of the way, Ralph. Go back in the house or I'll mow your feet." No one in town had a goose's idea where she found him, how she taught him to walk, unless she bought him a peep of chickens to be examples or got him toilet trained. He, in our minds, the veritable emblem of the reason we invented the concept of uselessness. Thank God he married a woman who knew how a deep well pulley system worked, or he would have died of thirst staring at the sink. His presence no longer a matter she had time or energy to think about, it being nothing worth the effort. In March, after almost 180 days of bed, she asked the young RN just out of Temple Nursing School if she would please find someone to go out to her house and look in her closet and bring her white long dress up to the hospital if it wouldn't be trouble. When the nurse, who had not yet been told that arguing with Miss Buena Vista was like arguing with an axe, asked, "What'd you need it for?" She only looked at her with her owl stare until she said, "Yes, ma'am. I will find somebody to do that, even if I have to do it myself." She said, "I would be much obliged. Would you have them hang it up in the wardrobe side by my bed?" on an equinox day when the sunrise and the moon set painted both corners of her long window at dawn, a nurse walking by heard her say, "Okay, I'm done with it. Get out of the way. I'm coming through." By the time she got in, she was already gone. Her hair combed, wearing her white dress. No one knew or could imagine how she got out of that wardrobe closet and on her body with her spiral broken hip, hands folded together, pretty. They called Dr. Tubbs, who came and felt her pulse, said like a mortician, "She has expired." Started writing on the chart to make it official. When her husband stood up and held his hands like he was exposing a stigmata, said, "Is she dead then?" Everybody shocked because they had once again forgotten his presence in the room. And her eyes came open, looking right at him. She said, "You can go home now, Ralph. Go home now. Now." And she closed her eyes and was dead again. Dr. Tubbs said, "I believe Miss Buna would agree with me when I say, I'll be damned." And no one said, no, she wouldn't. The nurse said, "I've never seen that before." Ralph said, "Well, I'll be going home now. I believe she done gone off and left me for good." Dr. Tubbs said, "I believe Miss Buna would tell me to go to hell if she heard me say, 'Oh, God, I loved that woman. I would have kept her as my patient every day of my life. But Miss Buna, I want you to know, if you can hear me, just in the unlikely event that there is an afterlife, I sincerely hope we are in separate chambers. With my luck, there will be a pet rattlesnake in your room. And finally it strikes you, and St. Peter will come running for me to come in and check on that poor snake, heal it up, and forgive it for what it in ignorance did. And I suspect on my last day on earth, that memory will cover me like a cast iron pot lid. Well, that's an introduction to my new book. Those of you who decide you might want to read on it, I hope you like it. And if you don't, well, find me and pin a "Kick Me" sign on my back, and I'll wear it for a day. Snow College, thank you for letting me come here.